everybody for joining us.
Recording.
Thank you for joining us today. We are really excited because we are starting to get closer to our fall opening of workforce training grants that will be able to fund several years worth of workforce training for climate critical jobs. Right now we're having today's webinar because we have one solicitation open, and we're trying to get more partnerships created that will be in a good place to be able to apply for that multi-year funding that's going to be coming in the fall. So today what we decided to do is we're adding to a number of other webinars that we've recorded in the past, and we're taking a look at sort of some great partnerships, opportunities for workforce training related to climate critical occupations that have been going on in New York for a while. So our sister agency is, can everyone mute please? Our sister agency, NYSERDA in New York, who does very similar work to some of the work that MassCEC does, has been providing workforce training grants for close to a decade right now. And so there's a lot of wonderful examples of things that we would love to see similar get created here in Massachusetts. And so we've invited 3 different organizations today to come talk to you. So first, I'm going to just kick off with a little bit of overview of some of the funding opportunities we have open right now and ones that will be coming this fall. Then I'm going to hand it off to Jen Devine of Hudson Valley Community College, then Max Levitsky of Solar One, and Joe Palladino from the TST BOCES. They each have 3 different programs and are part of a partnership in each case that's really working to recruit, to provide support services, to get technical training, to place people in jobs, and then some of them have even mentoring of services as part of their grants that they have. So then we will be having a question and answer period, and if we have enough time, we will break out into different breakout rooms with the different speakers. You can choose to go to one of those different ones and ask more detailed questions. And just for reference, any of the solicitations I'm going to be talking about or the recording of this, if you want to look at it in the future, are going to be listed at our workforce page at MassCEC. So there's a bit.ly shortcut there at MassCEC Workforce, and you are welcome to go there anytime. Take a look at any of these. So just for context, those of you who know what's been going on in Massachusetts, the state legislature and governor last year passed a new climate law that sets a goal of getting to net zero by 2050 for the whole state. And as part of that, MassCEC annually is going to be getting $12 million of money that's really focused on workforce training for residents of environmental justice communities, current and former fossil fuel workers, and minority and women-owned businesses. So we have a solicitation out and accepted for the first round of things for the minority and women-owned businesses. And right now we have planning grants open that are due July 1st. So the intent with these is really to get people well positioned for a multi-year funding in the fall grant opportunities. Those will be coming, they'll be multi-year and can support a whole team of people who would be applying. So today, you know, this first step is potentially you might want to apply for these planning grants, which can help you build that partnership and start being in touch with the employers that would employ the people who would be trained in your workforce training program. And just some information, if you want to be added to our email notifications, feel free to put your contact info in the chat and we will go ahead and add you to that. So I'm going to hand it over to Jen as our first speaker, and this is a great example of a community college that has really gotten into this workforce training for climate critical occupations. So I'll hand it over to you, Jen.
Okay, hi, thank you. So currently Hudson Valley Community College is promoting and supporting a NYSERDA grant opportunity. It's focused on HVAC, heat pump, AC, and construction. It's called the Pay for Success grant. So the grant description basically is that Hudson Valley Community College's Green Jobs Training Program is part of a New York State funded study to measure if offering adult learners skills, training, and green jobs, along with extra support, helps them to complete training, find employment, and earn more money. Opportunity to receive enhanced support services is limited, so the eligible applicants will be chosen by a computerized selection process. The objective of this grant is to provide a pipeline of skilled workers for clean energy jobs. It provides scholarships and services, training for HVAC, heat pump, and energy efficiency, and job placement and evaluation. Next slide. Total funding and scholarships. The total award funding is $597K approximately. We do cost sharing between the college and NYSERDA. NYSERDA is funding $537,750. HVCC cost share is $59K approximately. The equipment is $100,000. Supplies and materials, $29,000. Marketing materials, $27,888. And scholarships and certificates to be distributed is $210,000. As far as the populations, we're focused mainly on low-income individuals. Also, the priority populations, which are listed here. And we collect this as students are interested. They fill out an intake form, which is basically a questionnaire asking these types of questions. The training that includes enhanced modules within existing classes, as well as some new classes as well. Basically, it's an associate's degree in the heating, AC, refrigeration tech services, and that's an associate's degree, which is credited. Also a construction certificate, and also offering non-credit courses, also covering some of the new improved technologies and net zero instruction. Also, we're offering enhanced services. Some of the enhanced services are business communication, teamwork, self-management, problem solving, resilience, program persistence, interview skills, mock interviews, resume writing, workplace skills during the training program. Some of the training credentials are listed here. We have the OSHA's LEED certification, remodel, repair, and painting certification, air sealing, insulation installer, and BPI, building science principles, building analyst, envelope professional, and heating professional credentials. Some of the questions that we got asked and wanted to expand upon further program details. Some of the enhanced services that can be covered under tuition are educational supplies. So that's things like books and safety equipment, supplemental workshops, which will include those enhanced skills that were described on the previous slide. Also job fairs. So this is where employers might come to the end of the classes, and students will fill out applications on the spot to help with the placement. One question was, what is the cost per participant? Well, 50% of the folks will that are included in the study. There is a study evaluation as part of this program. 50% will be randomly selected with a computer to be part of the study. And if they sign the consent form, they'll be eligible. and the tuition will be based on an income level on a sliding scale. Some of the lessons learned was also asked. We learned to leverage some of the existing community organizations, which were a great resource. We have EOC, for example, and the Seat Center based out of Schenectady, which help with recruitment of students, as well as help building some of the curriculum for the enhanced services and classes. Next slide. What are some of the examples of the jobs that we're looking at when they come off of these programs? So some of the examples of jobs could include, as you can see there, the AC and furnace gas appliance mechanic, AC specialist technicians, refrigeration technicians, controls technicians, service technicians, commercial installers, estimators, HVAC system design, building maintenance technician, alternative energy technician, wind geothermal, building energy auditor, and sales engineers. As far as construction, some of the jobs that they can look into are inspectors, residential construction and framing crew members, engineers, architects, masons, builders, and construction managers, cost estimators, and concrete finishers. How are the employers involved? So throughout the training and the program, some of the students can do part-time jobs while they're actually training. As we stated earlier, some are recruited at the class or HVCC job fairs, and also HVCC also has an internal job bank where employers can post open positions as well. Usually a high percentage of the students get jobs after completing these programs. There's also apprenticeship programs that are available to students as well. And also there is a offshore wind and welding and fabrication. We have a training as well. We have, to be more specific, an associate's degree in welding and fabrication. So there's also a very high demand for welding technicians, and the employers are actively recruiting the students right from the program. And that's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Jen. Now we're going to go on to Max, who's with Solar One.
Thanks, Bev, and thanks, Jen. So hi, everybody. My name is Max Zitsky. I am a director for the workforce team at Solar One. Just a little bit of background on the organization and kind of the work we do before I get into the NYSERDA programs. So Solar One, we are a sustainability and renewable energy focused nonprofit in the New York City area. We provide services of a wide degree across the city and focus on helping primarily underserved communities, low to moderate income folks, as well as children and adults of all ages in search of education. Can you go to the next slide, please? One more. So a quick overview of the main pillars of the organization. So like I mentioned, I'm the director for the workforce team, which I'll go into more specifically shortly. Our Green Design Lab is our K-12 education program. We're in hundreds of schools across the New York City area, and it covers everything from teaching second graders what climate change is, and advances all the way to teaching high school students how to do solar PV installations in their electrical CTE program. So it's very broad and covers a lot of different skill sets, but the goal is to incorporate environmentalism, sustainability with students at a young age. We also manage a park on the East River in Manhattan, which is currently under heavy construction, but is home to a lot of native species of plants in New York City. And we actually are looking to build a new facility there as an educational resource for the community in the years to come. Our current largest program for the organization is called Here Comes Solar. This is a technical assistance program that helps low to moderate income folks gain access to the benefits of solar, even if they are renters, for instance. So there are two main subsets of that. One is enrolling those who are interested in community solar programs, where they're often able to received subsidized energy costs compared to just paying Con Edison directly, and as well as taking benefits of solar for themselves. And we also facilitate project development and execution as kind of a midpoint project manager for the entire part of the project. So what that looks like is building a consortium of financing, installers, and actually incorporating elements of workforce training into the programs at times to train people in need for the jobs, and then actually hiring them to install solar for oftentimes the buildings they actually live in. Next slide, please. So the program I oversee is called the Green Workforce Program. We provide hands-on hard skills training to folks across the New York City area, and now actually starting to enter into New Jersey as well. And we cover a wide variety of topics centered around energy sustainability. This includes what we call transferable skill sets, which are more basic skills that people learn and then can build a more detailed career pathway upon. This includes sectors like the construction and carpentry area, electrical work, plumbing, teaching them very basic skills, such as how to use hand and power tools at times. The demographics of students that come to our program are typically or underemployed, and more times than not have had some kind of barrier to long-term consistent employment in a career pathway in their path. Next slide, please. So our model is unique in the sense that Solar One partners with a lot of other like-minded organizations across the New York City area. These are typically other nonprofits, CBOs, community colleges, and at times for-profit or corporate institutions to some degree. But these partnerships allow us each to focus on our core competencies. So our skills on the Green Workforce team rely on the actual training, the curriculum development, the program execution, and preparing people for jobs in the clean energy workspace. These other organizations are amazing because they each either have a specific skill set or demographic that they focus on helping people in certain communities, oftentimes both. So for example, the Fortune Society in the top left of the chart here, that's an organization that focuses on providing services and education to people previously impacted by the criminal justice system. Green City Force helps primarily NYSERDA residents, typically young adults 18 to 24, with educational and learning opportunities in the broad sustainability sector, et cetera. So they all have their own special areas of folks that they focus on providing services for. We partner with them to provide the training, and together we're each able to do what we're best at. Next slide, please. So I'll go through quickly about the program a little bit before the NYSERDA specifics, but we have a headquarters in Long Island City, Queens, where we're able to provide these hands-on training programs so students can actually get real-world experience. A lot of our curriculum focuses on green building operations and maintenance, which has a lot of energy efficient pathways, especially in New York City and the multifamily building sector. The transferable skills such as green construction, which open up a lot of doorways for students as well, but then some more niche sectors such as solar installation, which is obviously a smaller number of jobs, but much more, a certain direction on the energy spectrum. And the hands-on projects are really what draws students to the program and what allows them to be successful when they are hired, because they've actually had some kind of experience in a demo setting or even potentially like an internship on the job type setting that they're then able to leverage as they hunt for jobs. Next slide, please. And just quickly, we've seen a lot of growth over the years. We've now trained over 4,000 students since the program's inception, and actually getting closer to 5,000 before this year's over. Obviously, we had some setbacks due to COVID, like so many other people, but even though we are such a hands-on focused program, we were able to pivot things remotely, do a lot of online training, and still provide these opportunities to people in need throughout the worst parts of the pandemic when most folks were homebound. And just some photos of the training in action. There's some carpentry and electrical programs here. And again, these transferable skills are really important from our perspective and employers as well. We regularly will be speaking with folks in the solar industry or the HVAC industry. And one of the questions is, what are you looking for most in your applicants? and they want people who are going to show up, who are team players, and have a yearning to learn on top of their base skills. So this crew is really effective in helping people get into these even more niche sectors. Just some more photos, more electrical work, hands-on work with wiring and circuitry. You can continue. Here's a great group photo of an outdoor program during kind of the in-between stages of the pandemic last year. And again, it's awesome to have the teamwork aspect, and it's proven really beneficial for both the students and from a teaching perspective. Okay, so Solar One is currently involved in 2 primary different funding sources from NYSERDA. And before I even go to that, we have a lot of experience with NYSERDA and running their programs. I've been with Solar One for a little over 5 years now, but we have been using their funding for workforce programming as well as other parts of our organization for years before that. So we've built up a strong and healthy relationship over time and have really been running some kind of or multiple NYSERDA programs since I've been part of the organization. So the first one is I believe it's probably the same funding source that Jen mentioned at HBCC, but it is for high efficiency HVAC and heat pump installation training with mandated employer partnerships. And I have that underlined for a specific reason. A lot of the programs that NYSERDA offers now almost always include some sort of employer partnership requirement. And while this may be a slightly more difficult barrier for some applicants, in my opinion, and Solar One's as a whole, it's extremely important because it requires, it makes sure that you are training people for jobs that are actually readily available and not running a program, getting paid to do so, and hoping for the best for people once they leave the program. And they may or may not have wraparound services or support to help them get a job. So it's I think it's a great addition and a way to really improve the overall metrics of the program. So this one specifically, there was $4 million available for all applicants at its start. Our organization applied with 2 separate partners that were on that partnership slide I shared earlier. And our project in totaled over $1 million of that funding. Solar One received about $250,000 of that. And I say that because it's important to keep in mind that the funding goes in a lot of different directions, and the training and education, I don't want to say it's a small part, but it's only one of them. So because of these partnership organizations and the variety of services they provide, you have to support their staff time, recruitment efforts for students in the program, and then wraparound services afterward from the job employment side. So our programs, again, they're hands-on focused, specifically for heat pump installation, and NYSERDA has really been focusing on building electrification in the past few years and putting dollars toward that in a variety of ways, because the reality is, for New York at least, New York City specifically, that is where we see the biggest opportunity for carbon reduction. Multifamily buildings in the city account for roughly 2/3 of the total carbon output. A lot of these old multifamily buildings are definitely not energy efficient. They're probably energy deficient, and there's so much work to be done that is readily available for entry to mid-level workers. So they're really focusing on that, and heat pumps are a huge part of those upgrades that they're making. So we have 2 clients that we're running this program with, running multiple cohorts of trainings per year. We personally are offering a 5-week-long program, which is probably shorter than some community colleges are offering, but that's because our goals are probably a little different. We're taking folks who maybe haven't been in an educational setting in quite a long time and asking them to commit weeks of their life to learning new skills, which is very difficult for certain communities. They're also foregoing wages during that time because it's a full-time program. So we find that most programs average about a month long with Solar One. This one's an extra week in order to provide a number of additional certifications. Some examples of what we provide for this program in the HVAC space: we have our own certificates of completion in green construction and building operations and maintenance. We have safety trainings for OSHA 30 and the Department of Building Site Safety, which is essentially New York City's OSHA 40 that was mandated a couple of years ago by new law, as well as BPI trainings, EPA 608 safety for refrigerants. So students who complete the whole program can walk away with a high number of items they've received certificate-wise by the time they're done in just 5 weeks. Next slide, please. This is a quick overview of a recent class. We were fortunate enough to have Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney come by, who's been a longtime supporter of Solar One, and she kind of caught the class in action. So I thought this picture was cool. I wanted to show everybody. And then our second set of programs we're running is a broader energy efficiency training platform. It's fairly open-ended from NYSERDA's standpoint. Also $4 million of funding available at the start of the program. We have partnered with multiple organizations over the, I think, 3 or 4 year time period this set of funding has been available. Received $1.5 million to date, about 300,000 of which directly supports Solar One services. And this one was interesting because it was up for interpretation. The first application I worked on and program I developed for this funding source, we had a very specific employer we were working with who was focused on updating electrical meters to smart meter grid technology in the 5 boroughs. So we trained folks specifically for those jobs. We had a more electrical approach and time allotment for our program. We incorporated some material from Con Edison directly, who was a kind of an in-between partner in this program as well. So there's a way to make it very specific. And then we also have programs that are a little broader where we're essentially running a version of our non-NYSERDA programs that focus on the green construction, the building operations and maintenance, and then maybe a more specific sector like solar at a smaller amount of time. Because, like I mentioned, the focus on building electrification and operations and maintenance, there are so many jobs in the building sector here that is more than applicable from an energy efficiency standpoint for hiring metrics that they're looking for. So some of them are a little broader, such as that. And we have three clients that we're running these funding opportunities with right now. It's a month-long program, and we've seen up to an 85% job placement rate per year for these programs, which is great. So that's all I have for now. I'm happy to answer any questions after the next presentation, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Max. So next up is Joe, and I just wanted to mention to anyone who has questions along the way, feel free to type those into the chat box, and when we get to question and answers, we'll be able to better address them. And thank you very much, Joe. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. To give you a little background about TST BOCES, if you're not familiar with New York State education, BOCES stands for Board of Cooperative Education Services. So what we do is we serve a number of districts in our catchment area, usually by county or shared counties, and any career development programs that is collectively agreed upon to run and serve these districts. We kind of host them and train students at our location, which is usually centrally located. So any of the union trades, construction jobs, cosmetology, welding, all those career programs, for the most part, in New York State public school are held at a BOCES school. So I'm the administrator of adult ed at TST BOCES. And we did start a heat pump program, much kind of differently than the last 2 presenters. What we do at BOCES for adult ed and for certificate programs outside the K-12 education is we respond to the community's needs. And if we feel that there is a community need or interest in some form of training or certificate program, we will run it. We don't make a profit on it, nonprofit, but we do need to have a certain number of students enrolled to pay for the program in order to pay the instructor and cover some of our minimal costs. So if you go to the next slide. So the origins of the program, we were approached by a company called Heat Smart Tompkins, and we're in Tompkins County, Ithaca, New York. This was 2 years ago, not just this last year, so 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, it was proposed to start a heat pump program. It was before my time here in this role, but it was kind of new it didn't seem to be from the administration at the time that that was something that was going to be successful to run. But thanks to a persistent director of Heat Smart Tompkins, they approached us again last year, and we decided to run the program and offer it and kind of get it up and running off the ground. So you can go to the next slide. So 2020 unsuccessful, the revisit 2021. In the fall of 2021 was our first 20-hour class for heat pump installation. And this was run by an individual who had hands-on experience installing heat pumps, very knowledgeable. And we offered a 20-hour kind of quick and easy, if you will, class to kind of prepare students to understand, to kind of work with contractors, to have an understanding of how to install a heat pump class, or how to install heat pumps. And the first class we thought was fairly successful. We ran a second class in the winter. And in that time, if you guys have worked with NYSERDA grants, there's this caveat in there that says if you are successfully chosen to receive our grant funding, you really can't say anything. So imagine we were running a heat pump installation course. We had subsequently received the grant from NYSERDA, which we're very grateful for. And then we couldn't tell anybody about it because we hadn't officially signed the final contract. So the initial few classes, we'll run one more this summer. There's going to be a 20-hour class. And then when NYSERDA, now that we've executed all the paperwork and signatures, we will be running a 100-hour class in the fall. The 100-hour class in the fall, something that was mentioned, I think Max mentioned it, the soft skills piece. The soft skills piece or transferable skills piece, we'll have a section of that. A certain number of hours will be attributed to soft skills. We'll have the OSHA certification, OSHA training, and we'll also have the 608 three-way training for refrigerants. And then we'll have exactly kind of what we just did for 20 hours, also part of that 100-hour class. We look to serve everyone, but through our grant, we need to serve a certain portion of the disadvantaged population, which we will do. And one part that hasn't been mentioned yet that I'm very passionate about is career development and interest profiles based on Holland's codes. You know, it's one thing to find someone who's looking for a job and get them a job. But it's another thing to find someone who is hands-on and likes to be outdoors and likes to in the construction field, and then find them a job that aligns with their interests. And, you know, research will tell you that that's the way to really make you're happy and the employee happy, is you find a match between the jobs and what the individual's interests are. So that will also be part of the 100-hour class. We did give interest profiles to our initial students to kind of get them aligned with our first 20-hour classes in the fall, winter, and spring. And we look to continue that with our 100-hour class. So in addition to receiving the NYSERDA grant, the push, if you will, you may have seen, you can go to the next slide. Ithaca, the city of Ithaca received a huge amount of funding to electrify all of downtown Ithaca City. So in that endeavor, that kind of put us on a different trajectory to get people trained and to kind of incentivize this work and this training. So we've been working with Block Power, which Max may be familiar with and Jim might be familiar with, to train and provide trained employees to work with the contractors up here to essentially electrify every building and house downtown Ithaca, in the city of Ithaca. So that's the push. And that was the article that was in the Washington Post. You may see other articles that kind of highlight this endeavor. You can go to the next slide. And so in doing that, you know, we work with our local Tompkins Workforce Development Board for funding for the hands-on training. Individuals who qualify will receive up to $5,000 for materials. Could be boots, gloves, books, texts, transportation. So we work side by side with our Tompkins Workforce Development Board. You go to the next slide. We do this training for heat pump on campus. We do our ESL, ESOL, and our GED training in downtown Ithaca. So this is a hands-on training component that will happen on our campus, what I call up top, which is up on top of South Hill. You go to the next slide. It's interesting that we had, I mean, the range of ages that we had for our first couple of classes were out of high school graduates and retired individuals who wanted to learn how to do this. Not necessarily to be employed at the time, but to understand to do it themselves. And I think the do-it-yourselfers, I would recommend not overlooking that component. The do-it-yourselfers are going to probably go home and do it and maybe do it for their neighbor. So I think that's an interesting component not to overlook. Next slide. It's just another, you know, it's pretty technical. The individual who trained our first and second class was extremely knowledgeable. And what the benefits of that is he knew exactly what to purchase to give the individuals a really solid understanding of heat pump installation, helped us write our curriculum. And that's subsequently moved on to another employee who is internal. He's in charge of our green energy push on campus through TST BOCES. So he's it's right in his wheelhouse, and he's taken over the class and moving forward through and into the 100-hour class. Next slide. And of course, I want to, you know, appreciate NYSERDA for the grant that they have that they awarded to us. One of the ponds. It's not that much money. You know, I think it's somewhere between $80,000 and $90,000. It's not a huge grant, but what it'll do for us is what we've seen at times, and particularly in times like now, you know, trying to find employees for particular jobs has been difficult. Similarly, enrollment in classes sometimes has been difficult. COVID and this kind of short-term post-COVID. But what this does for us, which is huge, we're going to use it to pay our instructor. And that will allow us to build momentum. We don't have to kind of counterbalance how many individuals we get in order to pay for our instructor. And we believe that, you know, great things start with the, you know, small steps. So if we had like 4 individuals who signed up for our first class, not running it doesn't do us any good. Running it with 4 might turn into 6 by the end of the course, which has happened in our first few courses. And then the next course, it doubled, you know, and so we might go from 4 to 12 and then hopefully to 24, which would satisfy our grant. But that's a huge piece for us. And when we try to recruit is, and this has helped us, is we haven't been able to run classes if we don't get to a break-even point to pay our instructor materials. And this grant will allow us to do that and build momentum from what we've already started with our 20-hour classes into our 100-hour class. That's all I have.
So quick question, Joe, so the 100-hour class and the 20-hour class, are those night and weekends with people who are employed, or is that like during the day, the way Max's program is?
Our classes are at night. They are, the last one we ran was, the first one we ran was 6 to 8 every day. I think the new instructor wants to go 5:30 to 8:30 every day. And moving it to the 100-hour class, we will have 3 semesters, if you will. We'll do a 100-hour class in the fall, a 100-hour class in the winter, spring-ish, and then one in next summer. And that's the plan for the grant. And I think
so it's 3 to 4 months, the 100-hour, if you do those hours at night. How many months?
Well, we would start in September, October, November into December. So you get almost 4 months worth of those hours.
Great. So I wanted to open it up to questions. And Camilla, do you mind reading off anything that's come into the chat?
Yes, so there's a question. Registered apprenticeship programs require at least 144 hours of related instruction. Have you considered structuring a heat pump training program that would then qualify to be registered with DOL.
And I think that could be for any of you, right? Because you all have heat pump programs that are more abbreviated than this and not officially on an apprenticeship program with Department of Labor.
For our organization, that is not the intention. We'd like to get more involved in apprenticeship programs, but the hourly requirements and other pieces that we typically have to abide by don't usually work for the populations we serve. So we are better off not being part of that sector at this time.
I think another piece to the apprenticeship program for us would be that, it's easier to have an apprenticeship for a plumber, electrician, or a certified carpenter who are already in a union and certified to do that, an apprenticeship. There's really no heat pump certification. So someone who goes, like, we're offering a 20-hour and then a 100-hour course. But from what I understand, there's no real equivalent of a heat pump instructor or a heat pump installer other than an HVAC. So I think maybe if you had an HVAC partner that you were working with, that might work. But we had Halco, it's a big company up here in upstate New York. They have kind of on the job training, OJT apprenticeship stuff, but it's really for electrical, carpentry, and plumbing.
And all of you, since you are teaching heat pump programs, is there any effort to coordinate curriculum across organizations in New York? And is that stuff that people in Massachusetts could talk to you about, possibly adapting to Massachusetts?
Yeah, we're open to that. The curriculum that we have, which we wrote for the original 20-hour class and expanded it for the NYSERDA grant, that was really just, we're open. We would probably partner more to learn to make our curriculum better, to share it with anybody. I don't know if I'd put ours up and say, yes, look at what we've created, it's the best out there. But we would look to collaborate and make ours better, in addition to helping anyone else write their curriculum.
I'd encourage people to raise their hands too and put questions in the chat. Go ahead, Max, sorry.
I would just say I would second what Joe said, and then also note that when we wrote our curriculum for heat pump specifically, which was not something we were teaching students before we received this funding, we did some fairly extensive employer outreach as well. And I wouldn't say it was formal in the sense that we were working with them side by side in a room writing the material, but we really asked them, what skills are really important for people you're looking to hire for the open positions from an entry level standpoint. What areas do you absolutely want to focus on? What's good to have? What types of hands-on activities would be good? So I would encourage others to make those connections when available, and also make sure you can communicate with those employers during the development process if that's an option.
Yeah, and I will emphasize that, like, we definitely want to see employers, like the NYSERDA programs that were requiring employer involvement at the beginning. That's going to be a very important part of the multi-year grant funding that's available in the fall. So that's one of the reasons we're putting these planning grants out, is so you can start reaching out to employers. I think in Massachusetts, like, typically most HVAC companies would want somebody who had full HVAC training in all kinds of equipment. But with the advent of the Mass Save $10,000 whole home heat pump incentive for private, individual homeowners, there's a huge expansion in HVAC companies into the heat pump market. So they're really looking for a lot of people, but like, you would definitely want to reach out to HVAC companies that are getting into that space and make sure you're training for what they want, just like Max was talking about. Are there any questions? Just go ahead and raise your hand, or you can unmute yourself if you'd like to. I see John has a question. John, do you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I would like to know more about your strategy on your outreach and recruitment and, that kind of stuff. I know the list of names or list of areas that we try to pick from. I understand all that, but I just want to know how you engage with those groups, individuals, organizations, to bring them into your partnership.
I'll answer.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, we do a lot of work with a lot of the funding for the disadvantaged populations, underemployed, unemployed. We work directly with our workforce development, Tompkins Workforce Development Board. We also have Cornell Cooperative Extension. We're just down the hill from Cornell University, and they have a number of different kind of networking systems that we utilize. There's also Ithaca is great for just so many people and so many groups. Sometimes it's a detriment because individuals who need help, they don't kind of know where to go. There's so many different places to seek assistance. And I was just on a Zoom call prior to this, talking about a green energy jobs symposium that we're doing, kind of an expo. And it's just, 20 people talking about how we're going to recruit and make people aware and get them up to the expo. So I think part of it is networking, obviously, getting in touch with the individuals who offer services to these individuals and populations that we're looking to serve. And my predecessor was very much on kind of getting out and just hitting the streets and going from door to door and, making it aware of the kind of services that we offer. But I would say that the most fruitful one, I think the one that was most cost time effective, was partnering with our local workforce development board and having them direct us, kind of make it more efficient of where we're going to go to make our next connection.
Yeah, so I think in Massachusetts, the mass hire organizations is an obvious one, but I've heard of organizations like reaching out to youth programs for social services, to religious organizations, and definitely affordable housing is one of those places that there are often services where they know where their which residents are looking for, are underemployed or unemployed as well. And Buddy, just because I just recognized who you were from your voice, Jen, you mentioned an offshore wind certificate program. And I think I remember something about virtual reality with the welding as well.
Yeah, I was going to mention some of our marketing efforts are traditional. So we did a post on the website. We also have articles printed in some of the local papers. We have a flyer. It's kind of like a laminated hand card that we hand out. And then also our student advisors are also educating students that may come in as well. We have some news organizations reaching out to us for interviews as well, for some of the media channels. And then what you just mentioned, which is kind of unique, is we're doing VR headsets in local schools to give students the full experience, so they can see 360 video and wear a headset and get the full experience of what being in one of these programs would look like. So that's the VR headset, and then content we can upload to these schools.
And the VR, is that like specifically around welding or offshore wind or others? It could be anything.
So we're focused on the programs, HVAC, heat pump, refrigeration, welding, and offshore wind. So we're focused on those right now, but it could be leveraged for other programs in the future.
And so I'm just not exactly sure, Jen. So that's like, if you are welding, it's from the perspective of if you were welding, like how it looks, right? Or are you talking about the classroom experience?
So I believe you can do both. You can have the full experience of as if you're welding, and then also if you're sitting in the classroom, what it's going to look like and some of the equipment that they have on hand and students actually working the equipment. So we went into classes and took a 360 video of different classrooms and labs in particular for these programs. So you'll get a 360 video view of what it would look like.
More questions? Oh, I see. Someone's asking if any of you want to come to Springfield, Mass. And help start a program. Which, honestly, I would say the
I'm
last
interested
one,
in Solar One. So I pose that question. Would you like to come to Springfield and help us start one?
I don't want to say no. I will say that's a bit outside of our programming range, just with the resource we have available. But please, we should connect and discuss, because you never know. So maybe.
and Lawrence, I would recommend showing up at our office hours sometime. There are definitely solar installers that are in that part of the state that if they ever wanted to get into workforce training the way Max has, maybe that's an interesting thing, right? Or maybe it's on the electrical side. There's definitely some, we need a lot of electricians in this state. So that's an official apprenticeship program that is much longer, but I think, we know we probably need 6 times as many electricians in our state. So we could maybe connect you with some employers who are big, who are also aligned and interested in that and might have in-house apprenticeship programs.
It's not necessarily for myself. For a bunch of friends who are looking for a job. I'm a high school teacher who I teach Energy 101, which is solar, wind, and hydro, the theory. But I have a lot of friends and people who drop out of high school, or people who have no future, who have no idea what to do. But I tell them there's a lot you can do.
Yeah,
I'm trying to put together something for them and bring them together and get somebody who has a little more practical experience than myself, so that we can groom them, nurture them, help them find a lot of jobs to be done in this area. What is heat pump?
Yeah,
Or solar? Start with solar. Solar should be the easier one than heat pump requires HVAC license or whatever.
No, solar is actually really hard in Massachusetts because you need to be we should talk at office hours, but I would say there are people in Springfield that are very interested in this field, Lawrence, that we should connect you with, especially at Pioneer Valley Planning Association. They have a couple grants with us, both in the weatherization space, the heat pump space, and they're very interested in this like electrical solar side of things as well. So I'd love to connect you. So show up sometime during our office hours.
Okay.
So I see Joe's hand is up.
Yeah, if I could go on, to, what was his name? Lawrence?
Lawrence.
Yes, Lawrence. Or Larry.
Look, if my initial entry into education was as a guidance counselor, and I still think the most important thing in education is having an understanding of what their career development, their career path is based on their interest profile. There's a lot of science out there. It takes someone who's interested in being an accountant and throw them into the solar area, or, hands-on installing heat pumps. They're just not going to be satisfied. They're going to lose interest, and they're going to kind of meander off into a different thing. No matter what age group they are after 8th and 9th grade, if you get a kid to understand what their interests are as they relate to a career, that will motivate them and make education relevant to them. It'll make their job search relevant to them. If they want to go to college, it'll make that more relevant. It's all, there's an awful lot of research based on it. So I would just, my 2 cents would say, give them, it's free, they're online, Howland Code interest profile, have them take that, and that will kind of explain what their interests are, how it relates to an occupation, and kind of a direction or a path for them to go. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to train individuals to be involved in this movement. But we certainly don't want to take someone who is a research scientist who likes sitting into a microscope and doing research all day, go out and install heat pumps. It's just not going to work for the person who is the contractor. It's not going to work for the person who's doing that job. You really, and there's enough people out there to fill these jobs. I just think it's critical to get them to understand what job is right for them, for the employer and for the employee. So I would encourage you, if you have a handful of students who are, they lack direction or they don't know what it is that they want to do and they seem unmotivated or disconnected, I would suggest starting with that.
And Lawrence, we'd love to get your email. If you'd put it in the chat right now, we can reach out and try and connect you with some of these other people. Maybe those students, like there are a number of programs already we could connect them with, and maybe this kind of funding could add on to those programs.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, we'd love to connect you. Because we're getting close to the end of time, we've had a lot of good questions here. I just want to let people know. There we go. That we have a lot of other content on our web. I'm going to open this up to my colleague, Camilla, who's going to just run through this real fast.
Yes, thank you for all our presenters today. And if you're interested in watching our previous workforce equity webinars, they're all available on our workforce equity page. I just dropped the link to that in the chat. So all the recordings and the slides will be available for all of these previous webinars. And as Bev mentioned, we are hosting office hours every week. So if you have any questions about our solicitations, or if you want to network with other potential applicants, feel free to drop by to any of our office hours. And that information will also be on our workforce equity page. And our next office hours will be tomorrow from 2 to 3 p.m.
And thank you again so much to our speakers. This is such helpful information. I know it can be daunting for organizations, even vocational schools who have HVAC programs, to try and figure out how to do all of this and to target residents of environmental justice communities. So seeing what you've done, I think is really inspirational. And thanks for coming today. Anybody who has questions, please reach out to us at workforce@massec.com. Show up at our office hours, take a look at our other webinars. We did a very similar one with 3 other grantees in New York of NYSERDA grants. Those are also really inspirational, very different, but it's really interesting to see the wide variety of approaches that are really succeeding in Massachusetts or in New York. And we really want to see them similar things established here in Massachusetts. So thanks for joining us. And thanks, Larry. I see your email.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.